Well, today we're going to be talking about truth in the Law of Non-Contradiction. So we see in chapter 18 of John that Jesus is brought before the teachers of the law and the high priest. Okay, they're trying to find a case against him in order to be able to kill him. So what do? They take Jesus before Pilate to see if Pilate can do something about it. Now, back and forth, we see Pilate and Jesus talking and having that conversation of Pilate asking him who he is and this and that. And towards the end, Christ turns to Pilate and he says, "For this purpose I was born, and for this purpose I have come into the world, to bear witness to the truth. Everyone who is of the truth listens to my voice." Pilate said to him, "What is truth?" Okay, that's what we're going to be talking about today. What is truth? The existence of truth and the definition of it. You know, Christ says in John chapter 8, "If you hold to my teaching, you are really my disciples. Then you will know the truth, and the truth will set you free." Then he goes on to say in John chapter 14, "I am the way and the truth and the life. No one comes to the Father except through me." Now, people make truth claims every day, so it's important that we distinguish what truth even is before we defend it. Or else, what's the point of arguing about anything to anyone? Now, we can't present Christianity as the truth to someone who doesn't believe in truth. But it is undeniably true that truth exists. And as Christians, we make specific truth claims like the existence of God, the validity of the Bible, the resurrection of Jesus, etc., etc. Now, we believe those things to be true, but just because we believe them doesn't necessarily make it true. There's a big difference between belief and truth. So what is truth? Well, reality is the way things are, and belief is the way we understand things to be. So truth actually puts those two concepts together. Truth is the correspondence between belief and reality. So truth is what corresponds with reality. In other words, truth tells it like it is.
You can't handle the truth!
For example, if I told you that I was holding up a piece of bread, you would look and see that that is clearly not true. As you can see, it's the Bible, not a piece of bread. Although Jesus said, "I am the bread of life." So if the bread of life is Christ, and Christ is the Word of God, and the Word of God is the Bible, then maybe I am holding a piece of bread. Now, there are some truths about truth itself. Let's take a look in the book "I Don't Have Enough Faith to Be an Atheist" by Dr. Frank Turek and Norman Geisler. Now, in this book, they list some of the truths about truth. Truth is discovered, not invented. It exists independent of one's knowledge of it. For example, gravity existed prior to Newton. Truth is transcultural. If something is true, it is true for all people in all places at all times. For example, 2 + 2 = 4, for everyone, everywhere, and every time. Truth is unchanging even though our beliefs about truth change. When we began to believe the earth was round instead of flat, the truth about the earth didn't change. Only our belief about the earth changed. And beliefs cannot change a fact, no matter how sincerely they are held. So someone can sincerely believe the world is flat, but that only makes that person sincerely mistaken. And all truths are absolute truths. Even truths that appear to be relative are really absolute. Now, before we take a look at that point, absolute truth, I want to mention something called the Law of Non-Contradiction. The Law of Non-Contradiction is one of the laws of logic, and it is self-evident. It is the intellectual tool that helps us discover what is true and what is false. The Law of Non-Contradiction states that contradictory propositions cannot both be true in the same sense at the same time. So A cannot both be A and B in the same way and in the same time. For example, let's say somebody makes the truth claim, God does exist. And then on the other end, somebody else makes a truth claim, God does not exist. Now, one of these propositions is true. They can't both be true, right? So we apply the Law of Non-Contradiction to turn claims against themselves. Let me give you a better example. Let's say somebody comes up to you and says, "I don't speak a word of English." Now, clearly you see that this is a false claim. Now, it's a self-defeating statement because, as you can see, they used words in English to say that they don't know any words in English. So simply put, the law of non-contradiction is almost like an internal lie detector that we can use. So let's go back to that last little point, that truth is absolute. Something that is true for all persons, at all times, in all places. So truth is objective versus subjective. Objective truths describe the facts of reality. Subjective truths describe your experience of those facts. For example, the sun is shining over the city of Moore right now. So it is objectively true that if you live in the Moore area right now at this time, if you walk outside, the sun is shining, clear skies. But I may experience that objective fact differently than someone else's right now. For example, I'm inside, so I don't see the sun and I don't feel the heat of the sun because I am inside covered from it in AC. But somebody who's outside at this moment right now will definitely feel the heat and the effects of that sun shining. So they're experiencing the fact that the sun is shining differently than I am, but it is objectively true that the sun is shining regardless. Now, believe it or not, there are a lot of people out there right now that hold the modern belief that truth doesn't exist, or that it's subjective and relative to the person. Now, this is where we can use our built-in lie detector, the law of non-contradiction, to refute that. If someone says to you, there is no truth, then I challenge you to ask that person, is that true? Is it true that there is no truth?
Well, well, well. How the turntables.
Or some people may say, yeah, truth exists, but truth is subjective. It's relative to the person. What's true for you is not what's true for me. This reminds me of a time when I lived in LA last year and I had a conversation with someone. One weekend I was at this penthouse Hollywood party and Brad Pitt turns to me and he asks, I'm just kidding, that didn't happen. No, I was doing what most actors do and valeting on the weekends. So yep, that was my job as an actor in LA, was to valet cars on the weekends. So I was working this valet shift one Saturday and a coworker and I are having a conversation and we're discussing the possibility of a higher power or if God exists, and then truth gets brought up. So I always try to see the position of the other person and what they believe about truth, because unless we define what that is between you and the other person, you're never going to get anywhere. Again, what's the point of arguing or discussing things if you're not really heading towards a certain direction? So I turned to him and I asked him, okay, well, what do you believe about truth? You know, we believe that there are truths out there. What do you believe about truth? Do you believe that truth is objective and absolute, or do you believe that it's subjective and relative to the person? And he turned to me and he said, well, truth is different for everyone. Truth is subjective. So then I responded and asked him, so you're telling me that it is objectively true that all truths are subjective? And then he stopped and looked at me and realized what he had just said. Because here he was making an objective truth claim by saying that there are no objective truths. So as you can see, that argument defeats itself. And even those that still continue to try to claim that truth is relative and subjective, they live a completely different lifestyle, as if they believe that truth is objective. Let's say you go to withdraw some money out of the ATM one day and it declines your card because it says insufficient funds. So then you call your bank and you say, hey, I try to get money out, what's the deal? And they tell you, yeah, you only have 7 cents in your account. And then you say, oh, well, that may be true for you, but it's not for me. Obviously, that doesn't work. So as you can see, we know that truth is objective. Again, your experience or interpretation of those facts may differ, but truth itself will always be objective.
It's true.
So there it is, guys. Now, before moving forward with defending the Christian faith, you must first reach an agreement with that other person that objective truth exists. Now, once that is agreed on, then you can argue what is true. But it's hard to argue if something's true or not if you don't believe in truth. Now again, contrary beliefs are possible, but contrary truths are not possible. So truth is objective, absolute, and it does exist. And because truth is not dependent on our own minds, it must be something outside of our minds, something bigger and greater in the standard that we can look outside to point to. And I believe that that outside standard is God. He is our source of truth. Again, Jesus said, I am the way, the truth, and the life. Love you guys.